All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. We are finally going to talk about Kome, because I have to at this point. Kome is out. She's the new Warframe. She's the new headliner for the update, and she is not very good. She is very poor. To clarify before we get into things today, the build I'm going to show kind of makes her function and do the things that she is capable of doing, which is to say not a lot. But what I'm not going to show you is just me shooting the turret at guys and pretending that decrees are what's making it good. So this is a discussion about actually Kome herself. And I'll also probably show the build for the Aminata, which is her special melee weapon, because people might want to see that too. So, to start off, I've invested no shards in this Warframe, because I think that Kome is trying to get into the bottom 5 of Warframes in the game, and she's trying to do it hard. She's trying to crack that case and get into the worst 5 Warframes in the game, especially with Caliban moving slightly up. With that, she's not worth investing shards in. No way, no how am I wasting shards and or bile on a Warframe that I'm hoping gets fixed pretty soon. So that's not happening. With that, the build currently looks like this. It's 3 Forma deep, and we've done a lot, and there's some things to note here. First and foremost, of course, you're seeing the Archon mods. I will note that these don't matter a whole lot. Archon continuity, if I apply toxins, I get some corrosive stuff, so it eats some armor away. It's like better than nothing, but it's just a little bit more expensive than Prime continuity, and that's fine. It's technically a little better, but if you don't have this, just use regular Prime continuity if you're going to play this Warframe. Archon Vitality is a little bit better. This is status effects from abilities that deal heat damage, will be applied twice. Not actually what this does. This gives you 1 more heat proc on an ability that applies a heat proc, so not as good as doubling it. So there's no real, like, twice happening here. So it doesn't quite do what you think it might do. And then Archon Stretch is just whenever you apply electricity, you get 2 energy a second for 5 seconds, which is pretty nice because she has to spam a whole lot to get anything going. But it's a nice little efficiency bonus. If you don't have this, just use regular Stretch. It's a little bit of a bonus. Other than that, for efficiency's sake, we are using Equilibrium so that when we pick up Health Orbs, we get a bunch more energy, which she's going to need because you have to spam constantly to get her abilities to do anything. And then we're also using Fleeting Expertise. She doesn't use that much duration, so the duration from Archon Continuity is enough of a counterbalance to Fleeting Expertise, and like I said, she has to spam a lot in order to get anything done. Then we're using Adaptation combined with the Archon Vitality we already mentioned, combined with Arcane Blessing to get up to about 2,000 health, plus Adaptation gives us a decent amount of survivability with her pretty inconsistent 3, in order to make her survivable enough that we don't have to just constantly be shield gating and doing annoying shit in order to make her work. Prime Flow for a lot more energy max. The energy max is like maybe not totally necessary, and you could maybe use a couple blue shards instead and get something else in here, but she doesn't scale with very many stats. The only stat that we're really getting any real scaling from is Strength, which we're using Precision Intensify for, which only affects our 4, but it's the only one of our abilities because we have subsumed Sickening Pulse that benefits from Strength anyway. Well, in any way that matters. Omamori technically can benefit from Strength with the heal multiplier, but that doesn't matter at all. So Precision Intensify is affecting the only one that actually matters, and we're using Molt Augmented. So when we're stacked up, we're at about 250% Strength on the only ability it matters for. And then, of course, we're getting Growing Power sometimes, which is going to be a little bit more to really just try and make Bunraku work. And now I'm going to explain how her abilities work, including the one we're not using, which is her 1. So her 1, and I'll just jump over here real quick to show all these. Her 1 shoots out these threads, which have an element on them, which you can identify by color. Enemies need to move through these in order to be affected by it, and they're only affected by the status once whenever they touch the thread. With that makes this essentially useless because it's like 1 heat proc, 1 electric proc, 1 toxin proc, and so on and so forth. If you can like use pull or some nonsense to make them go through all the threads, it's minorly effective at best. But usually if you're using this ability, you're going to end up spamming it so that the threads just like hit and you're just like going to be casting an absolute ton, which is just annoying and not particularly effective. After that, we have her 2. Her 2 gives her access to a very, 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 very small window into the thing that's good about Duviri's decrees. You hit 2, you get a challenge. This is to kill 15 enemies during a wall latch. Whenever you complete that challenge, you get a decree from a random list of 45. It is notably not all of the decrees, and a lot of the good ones are not in there, like Close Contagion, which would be really good on her. We're going to talk more about what makes decrees good in this video so that people can get an understanding of what my suggestions are for changing her. But basically, her 2, you get a decree, and then the cooldown escalates. So it starts at 5 seconds, becomes 10 seconds, and slowly gets more up until it is a 2.5 minute cooldown between your decrees. For a larger scale look at that, in a 20-minute mission, you'll get about 13 decrees, which is not many. After that, you're going to get, you know, a decree every 2.5 minutes in the event that you can complete the challenges nearly instantly. And the notable thing about the challenges is that you need to kill more and more enemies as you get more and more decrees in order to complete them. It's not going to stay at like 15 enemies that need to die forever, which is not great. In terms of her 3 rolls the dice and gives you charms equal to the dice, and then you have a 50% chance whenever you get shot for it to instead heal you, which is basically a bad version of Revenant's 2. Because we're building up a lot of health, this happens often enough that it can kind of heal us and we can stay tanky enough, and she does have a decent amount of armor, but essentially this is just like a mediocre survivability skill that is fine enough and would be okay if the rest of her abilities had much to do. Her 4 rolls the dice and does statuses equal to the dice roll on the enemies that you can see in front of you. If you roll 666s, it affects everyone in a circle around you, but that is not a very good chance to happen, so just presume it never will. And it is also a stun for a pretty decent duration, I will say. The duration by default is, 20 seconds, which is pretty good. So the slightly negative duration here is still an almost 20-second stun. So if you're just looking to lock down enemies that you are able to lock down, it's not bad for that. The reason that we're using Sickening Pulse is because rolling these dice, you get about an average of, let's say, 18 statuses that you're kicking out onto enemies, which is not horrible, but it's also not consistent enough to be good. So we're using Sickening Pulse to greatly increase the amount of statuses and also help stack up the slash, heat, and toxin procs in the way that Sickening Pulse works in order to try and make Bunraku kill enemies. Emphasis on try. Bunraku is not a soft line of sight ability, it is a hard line of sight check, so if an enemy is behind a chest-high wall, it will not hit them, and the same is true for Sickening Pulse, so it is not a particularly effective skill for actually killing anything. But again, this is Cope May, so we're just doing what we can with what we have and not just leaning on a gun to do everything for us. Outside of that, because, like I said, her energy economy is not very good, we're using the Death Cube build that's pretty normal. This has Synth Deconstruct on it, so it'll also generate health orbs in addition to the energy orbs. And the new thing here, because people want to see some of the new pet stuff, is the Tazakor. The Tazakor is just here to kick out radiation, viral, and electricity stats. This is basically a little chain weapon that does a bunch of status to a bunch of enemies, which is also excellent for getting assists, which is what Death Cube is trying to do, and just to damage a bunch of enemies. So we're going to get a lot of orb generation from him doing things. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention, because people want to see it, the Aminata, while not super impressive and not worth getting its own video, this is a full build for it. This is like a worse version of Idun, which you can get from Duviri, that would use basically the exact same build, except for its unique kind of augment pressure. It's a pressure point that has like an additional effect on it and is also stronger, which is meant to make it Steel Path viable. And I would say that this weapon is... You might be wondering why you're not seeing Higasa in this video, and that's because that weapon is kind of interesting. It's got like a weird shield on it or whatever, but otherwise it just doesn't do damage to significantly leveled enemies. And it might be fine as like a new player thing, but realistically you're going to level it and throw it away. By the time you can get the Higasa, you should have already built the Vectis, which is going to be a much better tool for any given new player. With all of that, let's go talk about what makes decrees good and why the decrees on this are not good after we show like the minor test here. So like this is the Orokin battle group. They're on Steel Path, they're level 225. We throw out our 4, this stuns all the enemies, and then we can use Sickening Pulse, and you'll see a bunch of them will die. Some of them got bad statuses on them, so we use our 4 again, hopefully get better statuses, and then use Sickening Pulse again. You do still need to get pretty lucky on her 4, but if you get decently lucky, You can just like use your one and it will kill a lot of stuff. Okay. Like I said, it's highly limited because you do need to be able to see every single enemy that you're killing. And it's also kind of slow and RNG based, but it does work well enough. But yeah, that's what's going on here. Now, I really want to talk about what makes decrees good, but we need to change location for that. Okay, we're back. Welcome to Duviri, a probably familiar place for most of you. This is Drifter Intrinsics. So the thing that makes the decrees good are the intrinsics. And the intrinsics make decrees good because of, well, really three things, but two main things. One being, any decree gives you 10% damage, and any decree gives you 25 max health. These are things that you get as like a nearly baseline. It is the first level you attain in Duviri after getting your Summon Kaith, which is part of the literal tutorial. Besides those two things, which make getting any decree good, you get the Opportunity Tree, which just generally, like as a general thing, it makes your RNG better and lets you choose what you are going for or what you are picking up in terms of decrees. So, not only is every decree stapled on with 10% damage and 25 max health, you also get the choice. And the choice is vitally important to decrees for a lot of reasons. Obviously, things like Close Contagion are not available to Kome. But like, if we're looking at what these are, regardless of what the list is for Kome, because I know it's specific and I'm not going to like curate this to only that. Looking at certain ones of these, they're only going to be useful if you're choosing them and wanting to use them. So a great example is heavy attacks deal an extra hit with 120% corrosive damage and status versus ability cooldowns get 15% efficiency. So comparing these two, if you've built Kome in a way where you're spamming her abilities, you probably want the 15% efficiency. This would get you to max efficiency, which would be great. If you're using a melee weapon that focuses on heavy attacks like Harmony, you probably want Salted Wound. And the being able to open this menu and choose between those allows you to curate them and put them into what you are doing. And that like reduces the raw RNG of just getting bad things all the time. Like, for example, Nimble Gunner, there's a bunch of rolling things that you can get where like you roll to reload is one of the ones Kome can get. And its roll to reload is not useful. If you got a melee build on Kome, it's like, congratulations, you have this decree that has given you actually nothing, because you're playing a melee build on Kome right now. So congratulations, wait 2.5 minutes. You didn't get to choose something else that would have actually helped you. Meanwhile, if you like are on a gun build and you choose Wormling's Aid to get the extra 40% corrosive damage and status, and you're using a shotgun, that's excellent. That's an increase to your shotgun damage that you've brought with Kome. The ability to choose and re-roll and use all of these things that are integral to the Duviri system is what makes decrees good. It is a large part of it because you can go down a path where you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing crits with my gun. I've got the like reload and get a stronger shot, which would be very good on like, you know, low ammo weapons like the Vectis or like the Exurgis. If you have one of those, then you might take something like that. If you're on a weapon that doesn't crit, you don't want Critical Frost. Maybe you're on melee and you want Smoldering Strike for the melee attacks with fire damage. Those choices make a big difference. And even if you roll this and you get 4 things that are not useful to you, generically, 25 health and 10% damage is really good. And that 10% damage being like a generic buff where like it would work on like Kome's abilities, where the more decrees she gets, her abilities get a little bit stronger, would go so far in making her abilities actually good at dealing damage. And I just think it's really important to point out the things that make the decree system good is not just pulling a fucking rabbit out of a hat and being like, what color is this rabbit? I need blue ones. It's opening up this menu and being like, oh, nice, I got one that I can use, and I choose it. And that part is really important. And the generic stats are really important to what makes the decree system good. If we didn't gain the generic stats from decrees, you'd have runs of Duviri that are miserable. And if you're doing longer runs on Kome, you're going to have similarly miserable runs where you just get like a bunch of things that make you faster instead of the thing that would be good, like double status damage or like other good decrees, like the one that gives you the extra hit of corrosive damage for your guns and such. Like, you're just going to have bad runs of it. And I get that she's a gambling frame, but like, As is the decrees in Duviri, you don't have to gamble and always lose. So with all that explained, because I felt like it was important to do so, let's go do the Steel Path run with Kome and cope a lot. Into the gamble zone with us. Oh, thank you for saying hello, everyone. But yeah, it's... oh, man. I hope they buff this Warframe. I really do, too. Because I think that her design and everything is so fun. But I really hope they buff this Warframe. Because it's rough out here, buddy. Yeah, I have seen way, way too many people just being, like, just shoot a gun. Also, I'm going to use the Aminata to start here to grab some energy. Also, because the Aminata is better than her. This room might be okay if we're using her for stuff. Oh, right. Urtuon. Enemies while sliding. Probably get some slide kills with the Aminata. But yeah, I think I didn't point out about this because I was talking so much about her her decrees and stuff. I do think that doing the challenges for her decrees is like fun and like a nice like wrinkle for like acquiring them. Ground Slam and Power Strike boost attack speed for by 25% for 5 seconds. Again, super narrow and like not very useful to like most builds you would probably be running. This build, I should have a decent enough line of sight. Except for those guys over to my right, I can't really see. Kill enemies inflicted with cold status. My 4 can do that, thankfully. There we go. Finisher attacks grant 500 armor for 10 seconds. Again, are these OP? Like, not very strong. I've gotten 2 useless ones so far. Let me grab all this health and heal up a bit. Kill enemies that are far away. Also pretty easy challenge. After taking damage, roll to recover half the damage taken. Oh, it's a rare one. I got 2 of that buff. Too bad it doesn't do anything. And my cooldown is already at like 15 seconds or so or whatever. But like... this is a big thing with the decrees, is that people think that they're so strong. And there's like a couple of them. But like... there's a couple of them that are pretty damn strong. And then otherwise... you're going to be sad most of the time. They don't have the generic stuff. Like, wouldn't I be much happier if I had, like, almost 100 more health right now? And, like, a percentage more damage? Yeah, definitely. Oh, kill enemies close to me. We can accomplish that. We can get near, guys. Yeah, this is just, like, Sickening Pulse plus, you know. Plus her 4. It's super cope, I know, but if you want to actually use what's in Kome's kit, this is what's up. Could you throw Roar on her or whatever and like maybe use that with her 4? Maybe, sure. But like, the Sickening Pulse is a what-if scenario on if she was good. What if at least if her 4 was good. Also, Violence is here, so no abilities for a moment. Where is Violence? Here you are, buddy. Here you go. Hopefully we can get to that. Your first shot after reloading deals 200% damage. See, like, that's not a bad one. But I really would have chosen something else. I'm using a melee weapon right now. And, like, even if I was using something else, like the Boar or my Latum, after reload, 1 shot? Like, I brought a bunch of good weapons, but they can't really utilize that. So now, like, you know, it just escalates like this, where it's like, you know, you probably won't see actually meaningful like, Duviri decrees for yourself. It probably won't happen for you, which sucks. Because you don't have the ability to influence the randomness. Also this, you get energy drain. You can hold your 2 to cancel it. Sometimes your challenges come with horrific downsides, like 5 energy drain from you a second, or you being always on fire. And it's like, yeah, you cancel it and then you get the long cooldown. But like, it's this long cooldown combined with decrees not being that good, combined with sometimes get fucked idiot. Like, and it's like, sure, is that gambling? I guess so. But the gambling should probably feel good. Like, there's, you know, there's a lot of examples of gambling that's, like, fun in video games. Like, great examples like FF14's Golden Saucer, I suppose. Like, you don't have to have it be like, you lose most of the time, and then every once in a while, maybe you feel like you won. Like, every couple of days of gambling, you feel like you really got somewhere. Like, that doesn't have to be the case. Throw it on again. Enemies during wall latch. This one's actually not as bad as people say it is, because you can just wall latch and use abilities, but maybe that's just me, because I'm using abilities. And a lot of other people are not using abilities. And, like, even with her bad abilities, you can kill some enemies if you, like, super cope on it and use Sickening Pulse and do some stuff. For 14 out of 33, 16. Oh, we got 4 6s. Wow. This was a tricky design space, to be honest. I mean, I agree with you that it's a tricky design space, but I feel like everything about it is so overwhelmingly limited in, like, an insane way. Like, it's just tough. Oh, one more. And Critical Frost. Critical hits deal an extra hit with 80% cold damage and status. See, that's not bad. That's our first good one. And now we have to wait a minute and a half-ish before we can get another decree. We got 1 in our first 6 minutes in the mission. We got 1 decree. That's like, that's pretty generically helpful. Like, most builds have crits in them. Also, yeah, good luck getting decrees if you're playing in a group that has, you know, relevant warframes in it. Like, that's also definitely a factor. You're also, we're at 7 minutes. I'm at 600 and something kills, which is not too bad. We found a pretty good tile. Like, it's, you know, it's not 100 KPM, but it's like okay. Like, she's not completely unusable. You can cope on this warframe, and if you use weapons that can just do the mission without her, it'll look pretty good. But in terms of her actual power, it's pretty disappointing. Not too bad, but half the kills are with Aminata. Okay, well, yes. Yeah. Half the kills are with a middling melee weapon. Yeah. It's actually not middling. It's a little bit better than middling. It's pretty decent. Inflicted with Toxin is pretty free. This is an Aminata showcase, right? Well, sometimes. Sometimes it is. Fault Finder, weak point kills create a field of electricity. Not useful at all. And now I gotta wait a minute and a half plus before I can, you know, try again. Aminata not bad though. Aminata can kill that guy. Huh? How about that? Huh? But yeah, it's not good. It's really unfortunate. At least you're holding a good weapon for this test. Yeah, it was kind of necessary. Because, like, I mean, you guys saw we had survivals almost fail trying to only use her abilities. So yeah. Don't worry, guys. She's a good primer. Just to address that in this video, she's a good primer is, like, the most insulting shit in the world, because, like, a Sentinel is a better primer than her. Like, you could just run Diriga and then be a better Warframe if you were gonna do that. Like, utilizing her 4 to prime enemies is, like, the hardest fucking copium in the world. Drowning in solid cope. So, like, yeah. And I mean, like, let me be clear. I'm using Deathcube in this, and Deathcube is, like, not only inflicting more statuses than me, probably, he's also inflicting the important status consistently, which is Viral, which then my 1 is increasing the stacks of to more consistently kill enemies, because the Viral buff is kind of needed, because her 4 is not very good. And, like, that's what's going on here in general. The enemies inflicted with heat. Okay. That's workable. We're at 10 minutes for about 950 kills. How many of those are from the Aminata? You know, I tried not to use it as much as I reasonably could. Okay, let's see what our last decree is. Molten Metal. Finishers deal 20% of the enemy's max health as heat damage. Wow. These decrees really sure are carrying my build. Like, we really just need to be more realistic about this. You're not picking that in Duviri, ever. And you're not even getting what you'd get in Duviri, which is 25 health and 10% damage. And every single one, if I could trade in every single one of the decrees I got, or 10% damage each and 25 health each, I would do it in a fucking heartbeat. And, like, I think that really speaks to the power of these decrees, is I would trade in anything they're giving me for just a little bit of health and damage. So yeah, that's Kome. We're out here coping. We're doing extreme copium hours, and apparently a bunch of other people on YouTube think that she's good or whatever, so fucking good luck with buffs, I guess. For me personally, I'm going to stop playing this Warframe now that this video is done recording, unless she gets some changes, because there's just not a good reason to play her. So yeah, that's what's up. All right, we're back from TennoCon, and the Streamathon is going to continue, but there will, of course, I will try and have there be videos as well as the Streamathon at the same time, if I can. Also, thank you to the $10 patrons, Athean, Alex Parnham, Arbiter Daydream, Benuven, Fruta Salazar, Canalatra, Club World 3, Dylan Dworsky, Athrain, Afan, James Harson, JC4 Science, Josh, Luzanth, Malik X Williams, Mark Smith, Mikakel, Minty Ginja, Michta, Nerve, Ruby, Sanyu, Skur, Sharp247, Tamrielic Wastelander, Tester ZWP, The Coupon of Death, Tomeworm, Victor Palmer, Waifu Wars, Wildado1, and Sarah Fear, and of course all of my other patrons as well. It is incredibly appreciated for all of your support. But yeah, we're gonna try and keep the videos a little bit more regular while the Streamathon continues, and of course we do have a free to play through coming soon.